Hello everyone, today we are going to discuss about the three important sources used by historians to study the Mauryan Empire. These three important sources are Arthashastra written by Kautilya, Indica written by Megasthenes, and of course Ashoka's Edicts. So let us talk about the historical sources. Used to study Mauryan age. So, when we talk about historical sources, there is no dearth of historical sources. Before I talk about the three important sources that I just mentioned, and I will write the name, of course, Arthashastra, Indica and Ashokan Edict. So, before I talk about these three sources, I wish to tell you all that there were many other sources from which we do derive the importance of the age and information regarding the age. Many sources belong to the age, the Mauryan age itself. Many of them were compiled later. Many writers like Kalidasa have talked about the Mauryan Empire and what happened during that time. The historical book of Sri Lanka like Divya Vadana have given, or Mahavamsa have given us lot of information regarding the Mauryan age. Then there are certain inscription like Girnar inscription, where we know about Chandragupta Maurya and the dam, the Sudarshan dam, which was constructed by his governor. We know about that. Then we have lot many other inscriptions and books which talk about the Mauryan age. But out of all those information, what is seen as the most important source of studying Mauryan age is of course Arthashastra, Indica and Ashokan Edict. Now, when we talk about Arthashastra, Arthashastra is a political economic look or normative book written by a Brahmin called Kautilya, and it gives us an idea how a state should be maintained. So, if you want to study about Arthashastra, there are certain facts that you can study. First of all, it was written by a writer called, so I will start writing here, Arthashastra. It was written by a writer called Vishnugupta, whom we also give the name Kautilya. And he is world famous by the name Chanakya. So, these are the three names which are used. These are the three names which are used when we study Arthashastra. These three are the authors. Now, the problem is we do not know whether these three were the same people or they were different people who wrote Arthashastra during different point of time. Anyways, Arthashastra is normative in tone. As far as the structure is concerned, it is divided into 15 volumes or adhikarnas. So, Arthashastra has 15 volumes which are also called adhikarnas. Along with that, we have 150 topics or chapters which are discussed. 15 volumes, that is 15 adhikarnas, 150 chapters. It has 150 chapters, and in those 150 chapters, 180 topics have been discussed which are called prakarnas or prakarnas are discussed. Now, Arthashastra is written in a Sutra form. So, the format of Arthashastra is basically Sutra format, has around 6,000 verses, or we can say 380 shlokas. When we study about Arthashastra, we get a very good idea about the administration of Mauryan Empire, about how revenue structure developed, what was the relation of the king with the neighboring state, what was the role of the king, how centralized the administration was. So, basically Arthashastra gives you a glimpse inside the administrative structure of Mauryan Empire. Not only that, in many cases Arthashastra is very relevant because Kautilya speaks about the type of slavery which existed in the Mauryan Empire. So, he speaks about category of slave like slaves which were procured, slave which came with dowry, slave who became slave on their own will, and how some slave they gained their freedom and then they became liberated people. So, Kautilya mentions about social structure as well. However, while studying Arthashastra, there are few problems that we face. First of all, Arthashastra is a normative book. As such, the tone of whatever Kautilya wrote is not historical. He never says that Mauryan administration is like this. Instead, he says that an empire should be built on this principle. So, the first problem is Arthashastra is normative in tone. As such, it is advisory instead of being historical. Next important problem that we face while studying Arthashastra is that the book is not dated. It is not dated, as such we do not know when the book was actually written. Kautilya might have written the book much before Chandragupta Maurya became a king, or maybe he had started the book later on in his life, but because of the absence of any date, we cannot give any particular time to the Arthashastra. Next important problem of the whole book and the studying Arthashastra historically, as I told you, there are name of 3 writers mentioned in the book. The name of Vishnugupta, Kautilya and Chanakya is mentioned, and as such we cannot be sure that 3 of them are the same people or they were 3 different people during 3 different period of time. Many portions of Arthashastra seems like as if they were compiled during Gupta era, and as such it is a big problem to to assign this book to any one person. We know that Chanakya was there in Mauryan court, but the portions written by Vishnugupta might be influenced by what he saw in Gupta age instead of Mauryan age. And so we can say confusion regarding the authorship. This is one problem. So, till now we have seen that there are 3 problems. It is normative in nature, it is not dated, and finally there is confusion regarding the authorship. But then there is one more problem. Remember, Kautilya was a Brahmana. As such, in Arthashastra he has called Jainas and Buddhists as Vrishala or Pashanda. So, he had certain kind of Brahminical prejudice when he was writing the book. As such, in his book also he has mentioned many times that Brahmanas should be given higher status in society, and due to this prejudice in many places he may have omitted the real situation which was there in Mauryan era, the caste division in the society which may have created a very difficult society or exploitative society. Arthashastra does not give light to that. Okay? So, we can say the next important problem is that the book suffers from Brahminical prejudice as Kautilya himself was a Brahmana. So, these are the problems that we see in Kautilya. Now, let us quickly talk about Megasthenes Indica. So, next the book that we study when we are studying the Mauryan age is Indica. Indica was written by Megasthenes. So, let me write his name here. So, this is about Arthashastra. Now, let us write about Megasthenes. And he wrote the book called Indica. So, wherever Arthashastra fails to provide any information regarding the society, we look into Indica. Now, who was this man Megasthenes? He was basically an ambassador in the court of Chandragupta Maurya. He was sent to the court of Chandragupta Maurya by the Macedonian general Seleucus Nicator, and we know that Chandragupta Maurya had a fight with Seleucus Nicator, and Chandragupta Maurya was able to capture till Kandhar, which were the land which belonged to Seleucus Nicator, who wanted to create a Seleucid empire in the northwestern frontier of India. Later on, Chandragupta married the daughter of Seleucus Nicator, okay? And once Chandragupta married the daughter Helena Nikova, he gave lot of dowry to Seleucus Nicator. Yes, Chandragupta gave lot of dowry, and in that dowry he gave elephant to Seleucus Nicator, and you must be amazed to know that a man was giving dowry to the woman, which was a new trend. Anyways, joke apart, but that elephant helped Seleucus Nicator to have win many war in future. Seleucus Nicator in return had sent Megasthenes in the court of Chandragupta Maurya as an ambassador, and Megasthenes lived in the court for almost a decade, and he observed the Indian culture, and then he wrote Indica. But then the problem is that Indica does not exist as a compiled book at this point. What we have is just the quote which were taken by later writers like Ptolemy from the book Indica. So, the problem with Indica is that we do not have the whole book with us. So, let us write. As we know, Indica is also a very important book, but because it provides information about Mauryan administration and the city. But then the problems of Indica, let us talk about the problems of Indica. The problem with Indica is that the book does not exist. The first problem is that the book Indica does not exist anymore, and it has come to us in a form of quotes which were used by later Greek writers like Ptolemy in their work, and we just know what Indica contained at that time. We do not have the book. Next important point that we must remember while we try to do a research or study Indica is that the book was written by a foreigner. As such, Megasthenes did not had a very good idea about the society. In the book, Megasthenes himself has mentioned that slavery did not exist, which was wrong, and he said that society was divided into 7 class of people, which was also wrong. He could not understand that Shudras were treated as slave in India, and there was not 7 class of people of 7 class in the society, but instead there were 4 varnas and many jatis. So, the next problem is that the book is written by a foreigner with little idea about India. In fact, many Greek writers later on who used the work of Megasthenes, they criticized Megasthenes, and they said that Megasthenes' book is nothing more than fable because he mixed myth and folklore and original account. So, there is many mythical things that Megasthenes added, where he has mentioned that India has giants who fight battle for the king. India has river where people float and they do not drown themselves. So, these myths somewhere makes Indica more like a fable than a proper historical account. So, this is the problem with Indica. And the last important source is of course Ashokan Edict. We are going to have a chapter where I will be describing and I will be talking a lot about the Ashokan Edict, but the most important factor that I am going to tell you today is why we study Ashokan Edict. See, out of all the sources, Ashokan Edict is seen as the most appropriate source to study the history. Why? Because it is an edict. It was inscribed on a stone. As such, in that no omission or addition can be done. Whatever was written was written. If something had to be edited, the whole stone block had to be changed or broken into pieces. As such, whatever was inscribed 2000 years back has directly come to us as it is. That is why Ashokan Edict is seen as such an important source of history. And the most important thing is that in this edict, the king himself directly speaks to his subject. As such, there is no intermediary. There is no third person or scribe writing what they feel like in the slab, in the stone slab or in the pillar or in the cave wall. Instead, it is Ashoka himself who is directly talking to you. So, these are the three sources. So, as we said, let me just recap. Arthashastra is one, Indica is other, and the third is Ashokan Edict. So, in our next class, we will talk about Ashokan Edict. See you for today, and this is all from me.